Expected an ordinary Tuesday evening to shatter everything I thought I knew about my family. I was at home, preparing dinner while my 5-year-old daughter, Sophie, colored at the kitchen table, when my phone rang. My mother's voice trembled on the other end. "Olivia, your father. He's had a heart attack. We're at Memorial Hospital." The world seemed to tilt beneath my feet. My father, Michael Bennett, had always been the picture of health. Running marathons at 60, eating organic before it was trendy, and lecturing us endlessly about the importance of exercise. A heart attack seemed impossible. "I'm on my way," I managed to say, already reaching for my car keys. My husband James arrived within minutes to watch Sophie, giving me a tight hug before I left. "He'll be okay," he whispered. "Your dad's the strongest person I know." The drive to the hospital felt surreal. Memories flooded back. Dad teaching me to ride a bike, his proud smile at my college graduation, the way he cried when he walked me down the aisle. He had always been my rock, the one constant in a world of uncertainties. The emergency room was chaos. Nurses rushing past, monitors beeping, the sharp smell of disinfectant burning my nose. Mom sat in a plastic chair, her usually perfect makeup streaked with tears. She jumped up when she saw me, pulling me into a desperate embrace. "They're running tests," she said, her voice muffled against my shoulder. He was at his office when it happened. Thank God his assistant recognized the symptoms and called 911 immediately. I held her tightly, trying to be strong even as fear clawed at my chest. Dad had to be okay. He was only 62, too young, too vital to be lying in a hospital bed. Hours crawled by. My younger brother Marcus arrived, his law firm suit wrinkled, his face drawn with worry. We sat together in tense silence, jumping every time a doctor walked past. Finally, around midnight, a tired-looking physician approached us. "Mr. Bennett is stable," he said, and I felt my mother sag with relief beside me. "He's asking to see his daughter. Just one visitor for now." Mom squeezed my hand. "Go. Tell him I love him." I followed the doctor through sterile corridors, my heels clicking against the linoleum floor. Dad lay in a private room, looking smaller somehow against the white hospital sheets. Tubes and wires connected him to various machines that beeped steadily in the dim light. "Hey, Daddy," I whispered, taking his hand. His skin felt cold. His eyes fluttered open, focusing on my face with an intensity that made me uncomfortable. "Olivia," he said, his voice hoarse, "I need to tell you something. Something I've carried for 30 years. Dad, you should rest. We can talk later." His grip on my hand tightened. "No, it has to be now. If anything happens to me, you need to know the truth." "What truth?" He closed his eyes for a moment, as if gathering strength. When he opened them again, they were filled with tears. "I'm not your biological father. Your mother doesn't know. No one knows except me and your real father." The world stopped. Blood rushed in my ears as I stared at him, certain I had misheard. "What are you talking about?" Dad reached beneath his pillow with trembling hands, pulling out an envelope that looked old and worn. "I've carried this letter for 30 years. Read it. You'll understand everything." I took the envelope, my fingers numb. The paper was yellowed with age, the handwriting unfamiliar yet somehow familiar at the same time. As I began to read, my father's monitors beeped steadily in the background, marking the moments as my entire world began to unravel. "Dear Michael," the letter began, "by the time you read this, I'll be gone. Catherine doesn't know, and she can never know, but Olivia is my daughter. That night, the one you were away at your father's funeral, I've carried the guilt for years. Catherine was vulnerable, grieving over her sister's death, and I was there to comfort her. We both regretted it immediately. When she told me she was pregnant, I knew I had to leave. You're a better man than I ever could be. Love her, protect her, and please, forgive me. Daniel. I looked up from the letter, my vision blurring with tears. Daniel? Mom's brother-in-law? The one who disappeared after Aunt Sarah died. Dad nodded slowly. Your mother was devastated when Sarah died. I was away, dealing with my father's funeral arrangements. Daniel was there for her. And they made a mistake. One night, that's all it took. My mind raced, trying to process this impossible revelation. Daniel had been married to my mother's sister, Sarah. After Sarah died in a car accident, he had vanished, leaving behind a successful law practice and countless unanswered questions. Mom had always spoken of him with a mixture of anger and sadness, calling him a coward for running away when the family needed him most. But how did you know? I stammered. Did he tell you? Dad's fingers played with the edge of his blanket. No. The letter arrived 9 months after that night, just a week after you were born. I found it in our mailbox. No return address. I recognized his handwriting immediately. And you never said anything for 30 years? What good would it have done? Dad's voice was tired, but firm. Your mother was happy. You were perfect. This beautiful baby girl who looked at me with such trust. I made my choice that day. I burned the envelope, but I kept the letter. Just in case. In case of what? In case something happened to me. You deserve to know the truth about where you come from. But Olivia, his grip on my hand tightened again. This doesn't change anything. You're my daughter in every way that matters. I sat there, letting the tears fall freely now. Every memory of my childhood seemed to shift and reshape itself. Dad teaching me to ride a bike, his patience as I struggled with math homework, the way he beamed with pride at every school play and piano recital. Had he looked at me differently, knowing I wasn't his? Had he searched my face for traces of another man? Does Marcus know? I asked suddenly, thinking of my younger brother. Dad shook his head. No one knows except me, and now you. A nurse appeared in the doorway. I'm sorry, but Mr. Bennett needs to rest now. I stood up, my legs shaking. The letter felt like it was burning a hole in my pocket. I'll be back tomorrow, I promised, leaning down to kiss his forehead. Olivia, he called as I reached the door. Whatever you decide to do with this information, know that I love you. I've loved you since the moment I first held you, and nothing will ever change that. I nodded, unable to speak, and fled into the hallway. Mom and Marcus looked up expectantly as I approached the waiting room. How is he? Mom asked, reaching for my hand. I looked at her face, the face of a woman who had no idea that her 3-decade-old secret was about to surface. She had no idea that her moment of weakness with her dead sister's husband had created me, or that her husband had carried this burden alone all these years. He's resting, I said quietly. The doctors say he'll be okay. But nothing would ever be okay again. As I drove home that night, the letter safely hidden in my purse, I knew that this was just the beginning. The truth had been set free, and its ripples would touch every corner of our lives. When I finally crawled into bed beside my sleeping husband, I couldn't stop thinking about choices. The choice Daniel made to run away, the choice my father made to love another man's child, and now the choice facing me. What to do with a truth that could destroy my family? Sleep eluded me as questions tumbled through my mind. Was Daniel still alive? Did he ever think about the daughter he abandoned? And most importantly, should I tell my mother the truth about what happened that night 30 years ago? Or should I protect her the way my father had chosen to do? The morning would bring more questions, more decisions. But for now, I lay in the dark, my world forever changed by a heart attack and a 30-year-old letter that had finally found its way into the light. The next morning, I sat at my kitchen table staring at old family photos spread across the surface. My daughter Sophie had just left for school, and James was at work, leaving me alone with my thoughts and a stack of memories that suddenly felt like lies. I picked up a photo from my 5th birthday party. There I was, grinning with chocolate cake smeared across my face, while Dad— No, Michael, I corrected myself, though it felt wrong— looked at me with pure adoration. How many times had he searched my features for signs of Daniel? How many times had he wondered if today would be the day someone noticed I didn't quite look like him? My hands shook as I pulled out the letter again, studying the handwriting more carefully. Daniel Parker, my biological father. I remembered him vaguely from childhood, always at the edges of family gatherings before Aunt Sarah's death. Tall, with dark hair like mine. Quiet, but with a sharp wit that made everyone laugh. He disappeared shortly after Sarah died, and no one had heard from him since. My phone buzzed. Mom calling for the 3rd time this morning. I let it go to voicemail. How could I talk to her knowing what I knew? How could I look into her eyes and not blurt out the truth? Instead, I opened my laptop and typed Daniel Parker lawyer into the search bar. Hundreds of results popped up, but most were too recent or from other states. Then, buried on page 4, I found an old newspaper article from 1993. Local attorney Daniel Parker leaves prestigious firm. The article mentioned his departure from Stewart and Associates, one of the city's top law firms, citing personal reasons following his wife's tragic death. There was a photo my breath caught. I had my mother's smile. But those eyes? Those were undeniably his. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was Marcus. Liv, where are you? Mom's freaking out. Dad's being moved out of ICU today. I closed my eyes, guilt washing over me. In my obsession with the past, I'd almost forgotten about Dad's condition. I'm on my way, I promised. The hospital was quieter today, sunlight streaming through large windows. Mom sat beside Dad's bed, holding his hand while he slept. She looked up when I entered, her face drawn with exhaustion. There you are. I've been so worried. Why haven't you been answering your phone? Sorry. I mumbled, avoiding her eyes. Had to get Sophie to school, then got caught up with some work stuff. Dad's eyes fluttered open. When he saw me, something passed across his face. Fear? Regret? Before I could decipher it, Marcus burst in with coffee and bagels. Breakfast for everyone, he announced cheerfully. The doctor says Dad can start eating normal food today. I watched my mother fuss over the food, watched Marcus joke with Dad about hospital gowns, and felt like I was watching actors in a play. Did Marcus suspect anything? Would he hate me if he knew I wasn't really his full sister? After breakfast, Mom went to fill out some paperwork, and Marcus stepped out to take a work call. Finally, alone with Dad, I pulled out the letter. I need answers, I said quietly. Real ones. Dad sighed, looking older than I'd ever seen him. Ask me anything. Did you ever try to find him after he sent this? Once, Dad admitted. About a year after you were born, I hired a private investigator. My heart skipped. And he'd moved to Europe, France specifically. The PI found that he'd started a new law practice in Paris. France, an entire ocean away. Had he run that far to escape his guilt? Or was there more to the story? Did you ever? I swallowed hard. Did you ever resent me? Knowing I wasn't yours? Dad's eyes filled with tears. Never. Not for a single moment. The day you were born, the nurse placed you in my arms, and you grabbed my finger with your tiny hand. In that moment, biology didn't matter. You were mine. I wiped my eyes. Why tell me now, after all these years? Because secrets have a way of coming out eventually, he said softly. And because you deserve to know your own story. But Olivia? He reached for my hand. Whatever you decide to do with this information, please be careful with your mother's heart. I nodded, but my mind was already racing ahead. Daniel Parker was in France. It wasn't much, but it was a start. That evening, after putting Sophie to bed, I finally told James everything. He listened without interrupting, holding me as I cried. What are you going to do? He asked when I finished. I don't know, I admitted. Part of me wants to forget I ever learned this. Go back to normal life. But I can't. I need to know why. Why he left. Why he never tried to contact me. Why? My voice broke. Why wasn't I enough for him to stay? James held me tighter. Whatever you decide, I'm here. We'll figure this out together. Later that night, I couldn't sleep. I got up and went to my home office, opening my laptop. My cursor hovered over the search bar for a long moment before I typed. Flights to Paris. The next morning, I arrived at the hospital early, before anyone else. Dad was awake, looking stronger. I need you to tell me everything you remember about that time. I said without preamble. About Daniel, about Mom, about what happened after Sarah died. Everything. Dad was quiet for a long moment, then began to speak. It was a difficult time. Your Aunt Sarah's death was sudden, a car accident on a rainy night. Your mother was devastated. They were so close. I had to leave for my father's funeral 2 days later. I didn't want to go, but he trailed off, lost in memories. Daniel was different after Sarah died. Withdrawn, angry. He and Sarah had been trying for a baby when she died. I think that made it harder. Did you ever suspect? About him and Mom? Dad shook his head. Never. Not until the letter came. Your mother was so happy when she found out she was pregnant. She thought it was a miracle, given how long we'd been trying. My throat tightened. You never tried for another baby after me? We did, actually. But it never happened. Now I wonder if... He stopped, pain crossing his face. If you couldn't have children at all, I finished softly. If that's why Mom never got pregnant until... Dad nodded. It doesn't matter now. You were all I ever wanted. I pulled out my phone, showing him the flight itinerary I'd been looking at. His eyes widened. You're going to look for him. I have to, I said, even if it's just to understand why. He was quiet for a long moment. There's something else you should know. The PI. He found more than just Daniel's location. My heart stopped. What do you mean? He had another family in France. A wife, 2 daughters about your age now. The room spun. Sisters. I had sisters. Does Mom know about any of this? A new voice asked from the doorway. We both turned to see Marcus standing there, his face pale. Horror washed over me. Marcus, I heard everything, he said quietly. How long have you known? Just since last night, I whispered. I was going to tell you. He walked into the room, closing the door behind him. My whole life, I wondered why we looked so different. Everyone always said I was Dad's clone. While you, he shook his head. It makes sense now. Marcus, please. Does it matter? Dad interrupted. Does it change anything about who we are as a family? Marcus looked at him for a long moment, then at me. No, he said finally. It doesn't change who you are to me, Liv. You're my sister. Period. Relief flooded through me as he pulled me into a hug. Over his shoulder, I saw Dad smiling, tears in his eyes. So, Marcus said as we pulled apart, when are we going to Paris? I blinked. We? You didn't think I'd let you do this alone, did you? Besides, he grinned, I've always wanted to see the Eiffel Tower. Looking at them both, my father who chose me, and my brother who didn't care about DNA, I felt stronger. Whatever we found in France, whatever truths were still hidden, we would face them together. But first, we had to deal with Mom. And that conversation would change everything. Telling my mother the truth was the hardest thing I'd ever done. We chose to do it at home after Dad was discharged from the hospital. Marcus and I had spent days planning how to break the news gently. But when the moment came, all our careful preparations dissolved into tears and trembling hands. Mom sat on her favorite armchair, Dad beside her on the couch, while Marcus and I perched nervously on the ottoman. The letter felt heavy in my pocket, like a time bomb waiting to explode. Catherine, Dad began, his voice steady despite his pallor. There's something we need to tell you. Something I should have told you 30 years ago. Mom's face changed instantly. That sixth sense that mothers have telling her something was terribly wrong. Michael? What is it? I pulled out the letter with shaking hands. Mom, this came for Dad, right after I was born. She took it, confusion evident on her face as she unfolded the paper. I watched her eyes move across the words, saw the exact moment understanding hit her. All the color drained from her face. No, she whispered. No, this isn't. This can't be. Mom, I said softly, reaching for her hand. She yanked it away. This is a lie, she said, her voice rising. Daniel, how dare you? How dare you suggest? The night at Sarah's house, Dad said quietly, when I was away at my father's funeral. Mom stopped breathing. Her hands flew to her mouth as 30-year-old memories crashed over her. Oh God, she choked out. Oh God, no. The room fell silent except for her muffled sobs. I wanted to go to her, to hug her, but I didn't know if she'd accept comfort from me now. The living proof of her greatest mistake. Why didn't you tell me? She finally asked Dad, her voice raw. All these years. Because I loved you, he said simply, and I loved Olivia. Nothing else mattered. Mom turned to me, really looking at me perhaps for the first time. Your eyes, she whispered. I always thought they looked like Sarah's, but they were his, weren't they? I nodded, tears falling freely now. Does he know? Did you find him? Not yet, Marcus spoke up. But we know where he is. He's in France. Mom's head snapped up. France. He has another family there, I said softly. 2 daughters. Mom started laughing, a horrible broken sound that turned into sobs. Of course he does. Of course he built a new life while destroying ours. Mom, he didn't destroy anything, I insisted. Look at us. Look at our family. Our family. She stood up suddenly. Our family is built on lies. Your father, Michael, he raised another man's child, while you what? Dad asked. While you loved her? While we raised her together? While we created a happy life? I need air. Mom gasped, heading for the door. I can't. I need to think. We watched her go helpless. Dad started to rise, but Marcus stopped him. Give her time, he said. It's a lot to process. Mom didn't come home that night. She went to her sister Marie's house, leaving us all in a state of suspended animation. The next morning, I got a text from Aunt Marie. She's okay. She just needs time. A week passed. Mom came home, but things were different. She moved through the house like a ghost, barely speaking, barely eating. She couldn't look at me without crying. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I cornered her in the kitchen one morning. Mom, please talk to me. She turned away, but I grabbed her arm. Mom, I'm still me. I'm still your daughter. Are you? She whispered. How can you be, when everything I thought I knew about you was a lie? The only lie was biology, I said firmly. Everything else, every moment, every memory, every feeling, that was all real. She finally looked at me, really looked at me. I loved him once, she admitted quietly. Daniel, before he married Sarah. But he chose her, and I chose Michael, and we were happy. Then Sarah died, and everything fell apart. She sank into a chair, and I sat beside her. That night, I was so lost in grief, in pain. Daniel was there, and he understood because he was grieving too. It was just one moment of weakness. Do you regret? I asked, not sure I wanted to know the answer. She reached out, touching my face. How could I regret anything that gave me you? We held each other and cried, 30 years of secrets washing away with our tears. 2 months later, I stood in front of an elegant townhouse in Paris' 16th arrondissement. Marcus stood beside me, holding my hand. We'd hired a private investigator who confirmed that Daniel Parker still lived here with his French wife, Isabelle. Ready? Marcus asked. I nodded, my heart pounding as I pressed the doorbell. A woman answered, elegant, late 50s, with a questioning look. Oi? Is Daniel Parker home? I asked in English. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Who is asking? My name is Olivia Bennett. I'm his daughter. The woman's face went completely white. Without a word, she turned and walked inside, leaving the door open. We heard rapid French being spoken, then footsteps. And suddenly, there he was, Daniel Parker, my biological father. He looked older than in the photos, his dark hair now gray. But those eyes, my eyes, were exactly the same. He stared at me like he was seeing a ghost. Olivia, he breathed. How? They had a heart attack, I said, my voice steady. He told me the truth. Showed me your letter. Daniel gripped the doorframe for support. I never thought. I hoped someday. Hoped what? I asked sharply. That I'd come looking for you. That I'd want to know why my biological father abandoned me before I was even born. Please, he said, come inside. Let me explain. The next 2 hours were surreal. We sat in his elegant living room while he told his story. How he loved my mother first, but thought she didn't love him back. How he married Sarah, trying to forget Catherine. how Sarah's death and that one night with my mother destroyed him with guilt. I couldn't stay, he said. Couldn't face Michael, knowing what I'd done. Couldn't look at Catherine without remembering. So I ran, came to France to start over, and never looked back. Marcus asked coldly. Daniel flinched. I looked back every day. I kept track of Olivia from afar. School achievements, graduations. I have a whole file. He disappeared into his study and returned with a thick folder. Inside were newspaper clippings, school photos taken from yearbooks, even a program from my college graduation. You were there? I asked, stunned. He nodded. In the back. I left before anyone could see me. Why didn't you ever reach out? Because Michael was a better father than I could ever be, he said simply. He loved you completely, without reservation. I was a coward who ran away. You deserved better than me. And your daughters here? Marcus asked. Did they deserve better too? Daniel's face crumpled. Sophie and Marie don't know about you. Isabel knows. She's the only one I've ever told. I've spent 30 years trying to make up for my past mistakes by being the best father I could be to them. As if on cue, the front door opened and 2 women about my age walked in, stopping short when they saw us. Papa, one of them asked. Qui sont-ils? Daniel looked at me, a question in his eyes. I nodded slightly. What followed was another hour of explanations, tears, and revelations. My half-sisters were shocked but not hostile. They asked questions, shared photos, tried to bridge 30 years of separation in a single afternoon. Before we left, Daniel pulled me aside. I know I have no right to ask anything of you, he said, but I'd like to be part of your life now, if you'll let me. I looked at him, this man who helped create me, then vanished, who loved me from afar, but never had the courage to face me, who built a new family while abandoning his old one. I have a father, I said quietly, a real one, who chose me every day for 30 years. But I took a deep breath. Maybe we can start with coffee. Sometimes, get to know each other. His eyes filled with tears as he nodded. The flight home was quiet, both Marcus and I lost in our thoughts. When we landed, Mom and Dad were waiting at the airport. One look at our faces told them everything. Did you find what you were looking for? Dad asked as he hugged me. I held him tight, breathing in the familiar scent that meant safety and love and home. Yes, I said. I found out where I came from, but more importantly, I found out where I belong. Mom stepped forward hesitantly. Over the past 2 months, we'd begun to heal, to rebuild our relationship on a foundation of truth rather than secrets. And where is that? She asked softly. I looked at them, my mother, who gave me life, my father, who chose to love me, my brother, who stood by me through everything. Right here, I said, with my real family. 6 months later, we all gathered for Christmas. Mom, Dad, now fully recovered. Marcus and his girlfriend, James and Sophie. And yes, even Daniel, who flew in from Paris with Sophie and Marie. It was awkward at first, decades of secrets and pain sitting heavily between us. But then Sophie, my beautiful